on the road, you got it done. Congratulations, first and foremost.
Thank you.
I was talking with Garrett and Kristen about how I remember when this was Francis Ford Coppola, and I had friends that were acting. I was living in New York. It was the 90s, and about how it's always a stop and start, stop and start, stop and start, but you actually got it done, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And the cast is paramount in this film, and you got them. Just kind of incredible.
I really think that they
assembled,
are
right?
co-authors of the film, and I'm sitting near the first incredibly talented actress I invited for On the Road. We talked about it.
Really?
Very
I was
early
cast
on,
first,
I think.
and it was Marie Antoinette had just come out,
Right.
and then we met.
Now, did you read the book in high school? Was it part of your curriculum at all? Or?
It wasn't, but I read it. I read it because a guy who I had a crush on, it was his favorite book. So,
Yes, of course.
I mean, I like Sylvia Plath, and
Yeah,
I mean, I was
yeah.
like down that. It was, because it was a more masculine novel. So for me, I didn't, when you read it at 17, I was very innocent. So I was like, drugs, like what's this drug? I don't know. I didn't understand the poetry until I read it later on.
And for you, I know I had read it a little bit. It's kind of infamous that you had read it in English because it wasn't even printed in.
Yeah, I read it, when I was 18, and it was really the dark ages in Brazil. We were living under a very strict military regime, so everything that the book stood for was, about what we couldn't get. It was about, allowing yourself to reinvent a future that we weren't offered. It was about expanding your consciousness, investigating sex or drugs as a way to better understand, what you could do in the world, and also the idea of movement to understand who you are and who you could be. I was very taken by that, and I think it's one of the best narratives about youth and the transition into adulthood and the pain that comes with it. And we've been through that. It's very painful.
Yeah. Well, also there's the beat generation. It seems like it's such in the past. Oh, the beats, and they kind of have names. And I remember when I moved to New York, Allen Ginsberg I moved to the East Village, and he was like on the corner. It was like, has anybody seen Allen Ginsberg? And I was 21 years old, and it had that mythic aura around it. But now I look, and you're thinking, what's the next beat generation? And really,
I feel that way about Patti Smith. Like, I know where she lives, and I saw her, outside of her apartment. She's like, anytime you want to come pee, just knock on my door. I was like, all right, Daddy.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
Those movements also, I think that they never die, like, filmic movements like the Nouvelle Vague. They just become something else. The Beat generation became Bob Dylan, and then somebody was influenced by Bob Dylan and is now playing, great music. It's just a way to reinvent, the culture on and on and on. And these guys really, they changed the way we live today. Because they made it possible for the 60s to exist, and for the 70s to also be a decade of reinvention. And we're kind of, having the privilege to live in a world that is much freer than it was, at that point in the 50s.
As a filmmaker and an artist, do you feel a sense of cathartic that you got it done and it's kind of behind you, and now you're just promoting it?
Yes, but I felt the same thing with the Motorcycle Diaries, and which was a pretty epic journey as well, and Central Station, which we talked about. I think that every single film gives me the impression that I'll never get to the end of that journey, because it's such a process of immersion, and you forget that life exists, and you just live that reality for months or years. And yes, I'm very happy that the film can be shared now.
Oh, that's great.
So, here we are.
Congratulations on it. It's awesome. And what's up with you now? You're
me. I'm gonna do a movie with Viggo, who's in this movie,
right,
called Two-Faced of January. It's based on a Patricia Highsmith novel, and it's in the 60s in Greece. So
it's a good wardrobe.
Yeah, very
already,
good.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, congratulations. Good luck with the rest.
You're going to have such a good time with Viggo.
I know. I love Viggo.
Yeah, to have Kirsten and Viggo in
And
in a
Amy,
film,
and
Amy,
Elizabeth, and
no,
like
no, I'm
this
saying,
cast
no,
is
no, I'm
amazing.
talking about your next film also.
Yeah.
To have
Sorry.
you and Vigo together in the film, I'm already queuing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Have to go visit. Well, thanks. It's always good to see you, and it's great to
Thanks.
meet you. It's always
Thanks
been
so
a
much.
very big fan.
Pleasure
of
to
yours,
be
so
here.
Pleasure to see you in real life
to
and in
be
the flesh.
Thanks,
And you, I
Chris.
hope I see you.
What are you doing later?
I'll be here or there or somewhere. Yeah.
I'm out and about.
Okay.